My name is Debo Ranti Ajayi. I'm a native of Ekiti. I was born into the Oluseri ruling family in Ekiti, in Ekiti. I went to primary school at St. Michael's, Ilaramoki in Ondo State. And from there I went to secondary school, St. Thomas Aquinas College in Akure. And from there I went to Abeokuta Grammar School in Abeokuta to do my higher school certificate, which I completed in Adeola Odutola College in Ijebu-Ode. And after a brief teaching in Abeokuta Girls Grammar School, I moved over. I got admitted into University of Lagos to study actuarial science. A very difficult course for that matter, because about between 15 and 30, I don't remember correctly now, of us that were admitted into that course, only 2 of us graduated at the right time. The others that graduated with us, we met along the way. And by God's grace, I became the first person in the history of University of Lagos to make a first class in that course. And after that, I went into youth service in Jos Plateau, and it was in Jos on October 31st, 1985, that I had a direct encounter with the Lord Jesus Christ, and I gave my life to Jesus, and my life has never been the same again. So after youth service, I came back to University of Lagos to teach in my former department, to also complete a postgraduate diploma in computer science. And during that year, I got full sponsorship to pursue a master's in actuarial mathematics at the University of Waterloo in Ontario, Canada. So I left Nigeria August 1987 for that. And again, when I left Nigeria, at that time, actually, Nigeria was still very good. If you graduate from university in Nigeria at that time, you're guaranteed a job, you're guaranteed a flat of 3-bedroom, and then also a car loan. So Nigeria was still okay. So I left to go to Canada really just for graduate school. I was expecting to be back to Nigeria immediately after. But as God will have it, I did a breakthrough research for a professor of finance that was my supervisor at the time, in developing routines for pricing options on a basket of stocks based on their minimum and maximum prices. I was actually acknowledged in the Journal of Financial Studies for this breakthrough research. And this professor was so impressed that he took it upon himself to find me a job in Canada. And before you know it, I got offered a job, and I couldn't return back to Nigeria immediately as planned. So I started that work in January 1989. And interestingly, before I completed first month at this job, the president of the company actually came to me and said, "Debo, how would you mind if we make you become a permanent resident in Canada?" At that time, they had to prove that no other Canadian can do the job. So they went through the whole process, and that's how my wife and myself, we became permanent residents in Canada. So we ended up having all our children in Canada, getting married in Canada, and I ended up staying in Canada for 13 good years. And from Canada, I moved over to United States to join American International Group, AIG company in Delaware. That was in October 2000 or thereabout. And so I was shuttling back and forth. And then in the US, I was again posted to Dubai to become the chief actuary for the whole region of Middle East, Africa, South Asia. So I became in charge of about 33 countries, but based in Dubai. Between 2001, I did that up to 2007. And so I was right there when Dubai really took off, when Dubai became a global destination for tourists and development, actually. So, but I went back to the US in March 2007 So to work from the global headquarters of my company as the senior corporate actuary. So I had global responsibilities, doing a lot of interesting stuff. So I was with the headquarters until June 2008, when I joined another company to become a managing director in this global actuarial firm. And in 2009, I was sent to establish office in Dubai again, because it was a familiar territory to me. So I was there 2009, 2010. December 2011, I was visiting Nigeria on a business visit. And one thing led to another. Governor Fayemi then, who was the governor of Ekiti State, who was actually with me, University of Lagos. He was my secretary when I was the chairman of Enijoku Hall. So we knew each other briefly for that 1 year. So in December 2011, when I was visiting Nigeria, he asked me to come and help serve in Ekiti. Long story short, I accepted to come to serve in Ekiti, and I did that till 2014, when we lost re-election. Of course, many people would have expected that I would be one of the first to leave the moment that government ended. But by that time, I've really become engrossed, involved with people at Ekiti level, and they have actually really taken on to me, because I was a pioneer commissioner for budget and economic planning, and I personally, with my skills, developed the budget system for Ekiti, personally, not through consultants. And as I developed it, I trained my civil servant team on how to use this system. And of course, the platform we were using were new to them. So many times they will make mistakes, mess up with the system, bring it back to me, identify what the issues are, point them out to them, rectify the issues, and give it back to them. So it was a very rewarding time for them. In fact, there are times when my civil servant team would actually sleep in the office 3 days in a row, not going back to wife and children, because of A, what they are learning, and B, the fact that we were on tight deadline, because we gave ourselves the deadline that the budget for 2013 must be ready in 2012. And for the first time in the history of Ekiti, the budget was ready before the financial year of application. And that was an achievement possible because of the working relationship between me and my civil servant team. It used to be fun. I mean, for them, they've never seen it before, that the commissioner will be right there in their midst, working. I'll be there overnight till 4 or 5 a.m. before I go home to wash up and come back to the office. And of course, it was an interesting time because we were in a new office area, and there were no mosquito nets in my windows. So when we put the generator on in the middle of the night, and all the insects in the neighborhood, you know, how they get attracted to light, and the light bulb directly on top of my table, my desk, and they all fall on my table at some point. But we were working away. We just ignored the flies and insects and just keep working. It was fun. I ended up having a very wonderful relationship with civil servants, a trust relationship with them, because I never worked for government before, so I had nothing to boast about. So I was eager to learn, and they were eager to teach, and they were learning from me as well. So it was a fun relationship till this day. The system that we put in place is still what they are running in Ekiti now to run the budget function of Ekiti State. So in March 2013, I was moved to Ministry of Trade, Investments and Innovation, which used to be Commerce and Industry. And of course, historically, that ministry is like a dead end where you send people to when you want to retire their career. But when I got there, it became alive, because I became aware that there's really no private sector in Ekiti. I became aware that Ekiti was ranked by the World Bank as the worst state in Nigeria to do business. In the doing best places to do business, Ekiti was ranked the lowest. So I took it on. Why were we ranked the lowest? The issue of issuance of CFO, how long does it take to issue CFO in Ekiti? Issue of litigations, how do you resolve business disputes? We found that it took over 4,000 days or so to resolve disputes of business contracts in Ekiti. Then the issue of licenses and all of those things. So I suddenly became the coordinator of all MDAs affected by this poor ranking of Ekiti, to look at things we can do differently, processes that we can revise, how we can make things easier for people. And amazingly, by the next time the World Bank was going to do the ranking of Ekiti, Ekiti became identified as the most improved environment in Nigeria to do business. Okay, that was one of the things that I was able to accomplish when I was there. So come 2014, while I was there as well, I came up with this concept of Ekiti Knowledge Zone, which I'll talk about later on. But in 2014, we lost election, and I was expected to have to leave right away. But to the surprise of many people, I actually moved from Ado Ekiti. I moved into Emure Ekiti, my hometown, to be with my people rather than leave Nigeria. And one of the reasons is because I've come to realize that leadership in Nigeria does not exist for the people. Leadership really is to use mandates derived from people to actually oppress the people. And then also, my interaction with civil servants showed that Nigerians are ready to accept, to work with a leader that they see really cares for them. A leader that actually is seen to serve, not a leader that is there to direct and instruct. Okay, so that really made me see the need to stay, because I was then imagining, okay, many of my friends and associates that are in diaspora, okay, they were all looking at me to see whether my coming to Nigeria would be an inspiration to them to do the same. So I couldn't just leave Nigeria, okay, with a story that is incomplete. So I stayed in Nigeria at that time. In fact, while I was in Emure, I assimilated, I related to people. There's no Akara woman in Emure that I don't know, that doesn't know me, because I go to buy Akara myself rather than send people, because it's an opportunity for me to show my face, to interact with people, to get familiar with their issues, and also for them to realize that living in Emure is, at the end of the day, is not the worst of life. If a former commissioner, if somebody who has been in diaspora for decades can live there among them, then it must not be bad to be in Emure. So I needed to pass on that message to encourage our young people, and I did that all the way through 2018. But during that time, I started asking myself, now I'm in private sector, not in government. So what can I do while I'm in Ekiti? What next? That was actually the theme of my mode at that time, seeking for direction from the Lord on what next. But in the meantime, as the Bible says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it to the glory of God. So one of the needs I saw then was that our young people, okay, capable, healthy young people, were idle. Many times in Emure, when I'm shuttling or driving out of town to go to Ado Ekiti, I will see young people loitering around in front of shops and kiosks. I don't know what they're doing, but possibly telling stories or whatever. Monday morning, and it's like, this is a colossal waste, okay, of productive lives. So I became concerned as to what can I do to help these young people. Then I concluded that many of these young people, they're lacking mentors, they're lacking in ideas of what they can do while they're waiting for the dream jobs. So I started mobilizing young people throughout Ekiti. Once a month, we meet in a hotel in Ado Ekiti. And the idea is that I'll listen to their stories, find out where they've been, what kind of course they have studied, what are their plans, what are their dreams, what are their aspirations, find out about even their frustrations as well with the system. And many times I'll find out that a little guidance of these young people can open them to possibilities they never thought possible. For example, somebody with a second class upper in mathematics that is teaching in a primary school or in a secondary school, what a waste. Because mathematics, at the end of the day, form the foundation of so many careers. Okay, with mathematics, there's a lot you can do. And then 2-1 in economics. Economics, the foundation of commerce, the foundation of business. So I started sharing with them, leading them to websites, telling them what they can do, rather than just allow their lives to waste because of a broken system. But it wasn't too long. Months later, I realized that DRA is not enough. It's not enough for these young people. I need to find more DRAs. I need to link up with many other people like myself who have something to share that will revolutionize the lives of these young people. When I started with the young people, we were calling ourselves Ekiti Arrows. An inspiration from Psalm 127 verses 4 and 5 that says, as arrows are in the hands of a mighty man, so are the children of the youth. And it says, blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. And amazingly, Ekiti is full of these arrows, these young people. Okay? Almost 60% of registered voters in Ekiti are below age 40. So we have them in abundance. But unfortunately, our arrows are idle, they're dusty, they've lost their sharpness, so they need help. So when I realized that I was not alone for them, I started reaching out to people I know, professors, vice chancellors, professionals in US, Canada, Nigeria, outside of Ekiti. And then I called them warriors. So they became warriors connected to the arrows. So the idea figuratively is that the warriors are to pick up these dusty arrows, clean them up, sharpen them, identify targets for their personal and socioeconomic development, aim them at these targets and shoot them, okay, empower them. So the concept is that we're going to convert these wasting arrows to become a powerful force for economic development in Ekiti. So we were doing that. So that kept me busy. We registered ourselves with Corporate Affairs Commission as Ekiti Kete, Warriors and Arrows International Organization. So I was doing that until the political cycle of 2018 came around, and I decided to enlist to become governor of Ekiti State under APC platform at the time. And then, of course, along the way, towards the end of determining the candidates for the party, the former governor, Kayode Fayemi, decided to contest. And of course, former governor, federal minister, with federal backing, it was an easy walkover for him to emerge as a candidate of APC. And of course, we were all excited, expecting great things to happen from somebody who had been governor before, who have had opportunity to learn what is right, what is wrong, and who again now have federal connection to be able to change things in Ekiti for the better. So he came back and went on to win the general election and became the governor of Ekiti for the second term. We were excited, hopeful, expecting great things to happen, but unfortunately, for whatever reasons, maybe the downturn in the economy, COVID-19 issues. But the unfortunate thing is that we did not have the development we're looking for in Ekiti. Okay, so here comes 2022, and Ekiti is still very much the same. Still very rural, still no private sector. So here I am again to run for the governorship of Ekiti. So what have I achieved, or what did I achieve when I was in public service in Ekiti? Well, as part of my introduction goes, I was a pioneer commissioner for budget and economic planning, and I was also later the commissioner for trade, investments and innovation. When I was in trade, investments and innovations, one of the questions that I started to ask myself, because as a diaspora coming into Nigeria, one of the quests is to find out why Nigeria is not working. And I started to ask, what can we do to move Ekiti from rural economy, from considered a backward place, to becoming a vibrant, viable economy in Nigeria? And when I started to look at various areas, I found out that we must find a unique selling point about Ekiti to actually have a chance of revolutionizing the economy. And what I came up to identify, strangely, is that an asset that Ekiti is associated with, which is knowledge asset. Many people will talk about Ekiti being a land of professors. Yes, we have possibly the largest per capita number of professors in Nigeria. But you go into Ekiti, the evidence is not there. We have never, no past government have ever given these intellectuals a platform to contribute to the development of that state. So I realized that yes, given that knowledge rules the world, given that there's so much wealth that you can create with brain power, WhatsApp that everybody uses today was created by a young person. You know, it doesn't have acres of land, okay, just brain power. Facebook, brain power. So if we have brain power in Ekiti and we remain rural, then leadership must step in, okay, to fill the gap. So I started thinking and asking myself, okay, sure, then how do I convince a prosperous physician, okay, doctor in Chicago to come to Ekiti, okay, or a rare surgeon in London to come to Ekiti? How do I get to do that? Then I remember what Dubai did. Okay, Dubai is a Muslim, is in a Muslim country, operating Sharia law, and their local citizens do not have half the intellectual capacity that we have in Ekiti. Yet, they have created themselves to become a global destination, not only for tourists, but also for businesses. And how did they do it? What was the economic model? One of the things they did was to create what we call special economic zones. These are physical areas of town that are earmarked for certain group of businesses with infrastructure specific to the requirements of that industry, with laws and regulations that are different from that of the larger society. Laws that are not Sharia based, laws that are based on English laws, whereby global companies can feel comfortable to operate from there. And they've been so successful in doing that. So I thought I can borrow that concept and bring it to Ekiti and earmark a physical zone, okay, where the laws there and the regulations there are going to be different from that of larger Nigerian society. And then also I can concentrate infrastructure that these companies will require in that zone, okay, such that I can then create an environment that is attractive to our intellectuals wherever they are. And they don't have to be Ekiti people for that matter, but just create this physical region. Okay, even companies in Lagos will find it ideal to locate there when the infrastructure, the proper infrastructure is there. And when I say infrastructure, that includes even the laws and regulations. And then in this zone, we can deal with challenges and issues that hold international investors away from Nigeria, as attractive as the opportunities are in Nigeria. So I came up with this concept and I called it Ekiti Knowledge Zone, and the governor bought into it. And it became a major project for us to pursue. We traveled to Dubai to meet PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers House, to actually interest them in helping us to develop the master plan. Because if we're going to have international companies locate in this zone, the master plan for that place also has to be developed by another international company so that they have confidence that this is not a locally baked and master plan that they cannot trust. So I did that when I was Commissioner for Trade, Investments and Innovations in Ekiti. And unfortunately, it was going to be the major priority for re-election. I mean, if that government was re-elected, but unfortunately we lost election in 2014. So that did not happen. So one of my achievements there was this Ekiti Knowledge Zone. And as much as I know, when Governor Fayemi came back, it became a top priority for that government. But unfortunately, they're not really following the design that I have. So given the privilege to take over administration from this present government, we'll go back to that original concept of knowledge-based industry in Ekiti, so that we can attract and commercialize the intellectual assets that Ekiti is known for. And I earlier talked about how we moved from being the worst places to do business in Nigeria to becoming the most improved place to do business in Nigeria. There's still room for improvement there, but I'm looking forward to being given the opportunity to improve on the business climate of Ekiti. As governor, or for any governor for that matter, what do I consider the most important priorities for Ekiti, which I call DRA imperatives for Ekiti? And number one is that we must move from being a civil service state. Right now, the economy of Ekiti is so held down by federal allocations. If federal allocations don't come, paying salaries in Ekiti becomes a problem because we're predominantly a civil service state. And that affects everybody else, including the woman that sells by the roadside. So the number one priority really is to move Ekiti from being a civil service state to having a vibrant private sector. So my number one priority for Ekiti is developing and supporting a vibrant private sector in Ekiti. And when I say developing and supporting, I don't mean the government will control the private sector. Then all we're doing is enlarging government. But I mean facilitating. I shared earlier with you my design for Ekiti Knowledge Zone. So one of the roles the government can play there is just to provide the laws and the regulations, the standards that are supposed to operate in this place, package that place in the form of master plan that I've talked about. So the government will invest in quality master plan and then sell this master plan to investors to attract them to locate there. So private sector is number one. Of course, those ones that are already invested in Ekiti, government must support them. Those who have already invested their own funds into Ekiti, those who are already doing business in Ekiti for decades now, The government must deliberately identify their issues and challenges and do everything possible to make business more viable for them, to support them, to provide guidance, to empower them. Because many times business management is an issue for a professional. Okay, a mechanic, for example, whose expertise is in taking care of cars, may have challenges in financial management, may have challenges even in electricity and power supply. Okay, so one of the things that I'm hoping to do is to have clusters, use the cluster development model, which means I can have a cluster for all the welders in town, an area where they locate, and then provide adequate power supply for them. When it might be difficult for me to support welders that are spread around town, who needs individual generators, we can group them into an area. In fact, we may not even need a generator, because sometimes our problem in Nigeria is that we generate power, but we don't distribute them well. So when you have clusters, when you know that this is an industrial zone or a commercial zone, then power supply during the day might be focused in that area. And then in the evenings and weekends, you make sure powers are available in the residential areas. The same power, but distributed in a way that it follows the people. Power follows you when you're going to work. There's power at work. Power follows you when you're going home. So that it's almost as if you have 24/7 power. Because there's no reason for me providing power in an industrial area at night or weekends when they are not operating. So cluster development approach is going to be used to actually help our businesses. And also, of course, empowering them in form of training. Now, another issue that I found out is that frequently governments take loans to execute their agenda, and many times they take more loans than they can sustain, and Ekiti is in such a situation now that the capacity to take more loans is not even there. Plus, debt capital has its own characteristics. Your lender doesn't care about what you do with the money per se, as long as you can service the debt. So they don't care. So if, unfortunately, you take loans and consume it, rather than invest in enhancing your capacity, they don't care what to do with that money. And Ekiti is in such a situation now that servicing debt is a heavy burden. So one of the top priorities for any new government is not to take more loans and to look for how to attract equity capital into Ekiti, because equity investors, they will stay with their investments. And the reality of Ekiti is that the money to develop Ekiti is not in Ekiti, so it has to be attracted. So you need a governor who is creative. You need a governor that understands the language of business. You need a governor that has international clout to attract global players into Ekiti. You need a governor that knows the value of bringing people, even for tourism, for different events into town, to come and spend money in Ekiti. You need a governor that understands how to create an environment for people to live in Ekiti and work elsewhere. So go and make money in Lagos, come and spend it in Ekiti. Go and make money from Abuja, come and spend in Ekiti. So this brain power that we have in Ekiti is something we need to use now. We have no excuse at all to be referred to as a state with professors and yet to remain rural. You know, something is wrong. So we need visionary leaders, people who can strategically exploit the assets of Ekiti. So the third imperative is actually, when I was commissioner, I realized that we were not enforcing local content rules. During the first term of Governor Fayemi, we took a loan from the bond market of 25 billion. And Ekiti did not feel the impact of 25 billion. So you then ask yourself the question, where did this 25 billion go? Of course, we spent the money on various projects here and there, Ikogosi, Governor's House, and a few other things. But then it doesn't impact on the economy of Ekiti. And my rationalization is that what should have remained in Ekiti also went out of Ekiti in terms of local content. So this is something we need to enforce. We need to enforce local content rules when we award contracts. And local content could be in terms of using materials that are generated locally. It could also mean using people locally. Okay, if we find out that we're executing projects and we don't have the human resource requirements for those projects, then the indication is that we need to develop them. So whenever we award contracts, my plan is to always get a manpower audit of those projects. Okay, we're going to demand contractors to tell us what kind of skills, what kind of professionals, what kind of technicians is this project going to require, and in what numbers. And once we don't have locally, how can we give you incentive to train them so that in 2-3 years, when we have to execute the same project, we don't have to be looking for people from outside to be able to execute those projects. So local content rules will make sure that whenever government spends money, a big chunk of that money fuels Ekiti economy, and they don't just flow out of Ekiti. Okay, and of course also we have to win ourselves from federal allocations. Waiting till allocations come from Abuja before people can actually have money to spend, or almost everybody in the state working for government is not good for economic viability of Ekiti and sustainability as well. So we need aggressive growth of the economy outside of federal allocation in form of internally generated revenue. And there are so many ways to accomplish that. Then another imperative that I found is that we need to start institutionalizing our solutions. What does that mean? It means that our solutions must be well structured so that they are insulated from changing regime, changing government every time. Okay, a government comes with a program to solve a problem, but it was not institutionalized, and the next government comes and just puts that aside. So, for example, the private sector development that I was talking about, okay, the government arm that is going to be working on that project will be in form of an institution. If you go to Dubai today, there's what they call Dubai Holdings. Dubai Holdings is like a sovereign wealth entity that administers, controls all investments of Dubai, and it's shielded from bureaucracy. It operates like a company, separate from government. Doesn't depend on annual budgets of the government. It has its own independent budget. It has its own corporate structure. So we need to start thinking of solutions that would outlast the regime that put them in place. So institutionalizing our solutions is going to be very, very important. Then, two critical elements. A visionary leader, as I often say, will invest in the youth, because a visionary leader sees ahead, years ahead, and must already start to think about grooming young people for that future that the leader contemplates. So we must invest in our youth, very critical. And then also, they say in the development world that smart societies invest in their women. So as we invest in our youth, we must also invest in our women, because women are the enterprising ones. Women are the ones that when they start something, okay, they have every incentive to want to finish it. They're the ones that if you empower with money, okay, especially in form of loans, their goal is to repay that loan, not to consume it. Unlike men, I'm sorry to say, you men out there, me inclusive, okay, we're so prone to having loan and then squandering it. In fact, some of us will even go marry second wives, okay, with money borrowed. And at the end of the day, their goal for borrowing money gets defeated. So we must invest in our women, okay, they're the stable ones, they're the focused ones. And this happens everywhere in the world. That if you want sustainable development, go after the women. They give you good returns for your investments. Then also, I mentioned earlier about intellectual assets associated with Ekiti. People come to Ekiti expecting to see development, and they're disappointed that there's no development in Ekiti that is consistent with the knowledge assets that people attribute to Ekiti. And one of the reasons is that many of these intellectuals are far away from home. Many of these intellectuals, they live abroad, okay? They don't have platforms. So in terms of developing Ekiti, we must deliberately create a platform to attract this diaspora home, okay? When I created the Ekiti Warriors and Arrows, as I mentioned earlier, these are the people referred to as our warriors. We need to bring our warriors home, okay, to contribute their knowledge, to contribute their skills, and to contribute their resources. And part of what we're then going to do is to match these warriors to our arrows. And then another thing, okay, we will maximize PPP, public-private partnership, in everywhere possible. Because as I've said earlier, the money to develop Ekiti is not in Ekiti. And we need investors to come in Ekiti. Investors, both national investors and international investors, to come and invest into Ekiti to create a vibrant private sector. But part of the models that will work is partnership with government. Okay? So a form of sovereign wealth will be necessary. And this sovereign wealth now, collecting all the investable monies of government and private individuals associated with Ekiti, can now deploy this money in partnership with private entities to make things happen for us in Ekiti. So, and again, my view is that all of this will have to be put together under a real ideology, a real vision. And my vision is to make Ekiti a safe, a secure, a prosperous place for people to come and live, work, okay, and prosper. So there's one thing in Nigeria that keeps global investors away from coming into Nigeria, and that is the issue of corruption, the issue of low business ethics, the issue that you cannot trust businesses to discharge their obligations under any contract. Now, Ekiti people have always been known historically for dignity. Ekiti people have always been known as principled people. In fact, you may not realize it. There was a time in this Nigeria that when a corporation is looking for somebody that they can trust to take care of their warehouses, to take care of their finances, they're always looking for an Ekiti person to put in those positions. So my goal as a leader is to revive these attributes of Ekiti people and let us commercialize it. Let us commercialize it in the sense that if global investors are looking for people to trust in Nigeria, they will find it in Ekiti. If they're looking for people that they can trust to discharge obligations, they will find it in Ekiti. They will find that in Ekiti, we are people of honor. We are people that has principles. And for that reason, Ekiti will become a choice place for them to invest, for them to work, for them to live. So the goal really is for me as a leader to create this framework whereby we can start to sell this brand to attract people to Ekiti. So in terms of imperatives, keywords that I would like to use are sustainability. We need an inclusive government. We need to use PPP, private-public partnership, and then functionality. For example, our education, is an area where we can seek functionality. Now, many times our young people, we fill their heads, they know the theories, they know the do's and don'ts and principles of this, conditions of that, but this just sits in their heads. So you talk about any topic, they can give you the A to Z of those topics, but this does not translate to productive hands. So we need to make our education become functional. I've said it before. One of the fundamental differences between British philosophy of education and American philosophy of education is that the British philosophy fills your head, but the American philosophies engage your hands. By the time somebody is graduating from American university, they are ready for the workforce from day one. Somebody finishes from British education, they still have to go through orientation, 6 months orientation, of team spirit, of how to operate this, how to operate that, Whereas the American education is preparing you to work. And one of the areas where this becomes evident, if you go to a typical Nigerian institution and observe the relationship between the teacher and the students, you almost see that both of them, one is looking to outsmart the other. The teacher is looking to set questions in areas that he thinks the students have not studied. In fact, sometimes when they are doing summaries in class, the teacher will be revising areas that he doesn't intend to set questions from. Whereas you go to an American class and you observe the dynamics. Please, I can talk like this because I've seen both. You go to an American class, you will see partnership between the lecturer and the students. The American teacher wants to know what his student knows. The British teacher wants to know what the student doesn't know. Very fundamentally different. So our education philosophy will have to be reviewed. We want to prepare our kids such that what they learn can translate into productive activity out there. We're not looking for people to tell us theories and practice of this and that, but to actually be able to do it. So as a governor, I'm going to look for functionality in our education. I'll give you another example. If you go to Dubai today, in the hospitality industry, you find Filipinos. In the healthcare, you find the Filipinos and Indians. These are the two most observable people that you will find as nurses. You find them as technicians operating sophisticated medical equipment. But if you engage these people, you will realize they're not smarter than Nigerians. Yet, our leaders have not consciously looked into tapping this opportunity for Nigerians. So there's no reason why, as governor in Ekiti, I cannot consciously create an environment to train and empower my young people to be able to send them abroad and even work to get them to secure opportunities for them abroad. And of course, look for clever ways such that part of what they earn there will flow back to development at home. Because if we are having problems absorbing all of them, we can at least export them and let them earn hard currency. So these are things that leaders can do that they don't do because they don't have vision. And unfortunately, everybody has a share in this blame. So functionality in our education is going to be a theme for me. How functional is this? How practical? What results? For example, if American is developing curriculum, the curriculum actually will also tell you what are the expected outcomes. After all said and done, what do you expect to be able to do What do you expect to achieve? It's not the theory that matters as much as what you learn from those theories and how eager you are to put it into practice. Yes, I'm contesting under the platform of YPP. Yes, we have at least two giants, APC and PDP, that I will have to confront. Not only in Ekiti, there are giants all over Nigeria. So how do I intend to do it? What are my chances? Many will ask. Well, I will take you back to the Bible. There was a time when there was this Goliath that was oppressing God's people. Okay? The way these two giants have been oppressing us in Nigeria, they've held us bound. Okay? It's almost as if Nigeria belongs to them. Okay? In Ekiti, for example, we've been created since 1996. Okay? Over 25 years now. And 22 or more of those years, we've been bounced like ball, okay, between APC, PDP, APC, PDP, APC, PDP. Here we are today, no development in Ekiti. So the people are tired, okay? So in facing these two Goliaths, we have to face it the same way the little David faced this Goliath, okay? You don't use the methods of the Goliath. Their method is, I'm sorry to say, okay, on the day of election, inducements for people to vote, okay, is their stock in trade. We're not going to use that. We're going to actually go for people that really believe in our vision. We're going to go after people that are truly tired of these two giants. We're going to reawaken, we're going to motivate, we're going to energize people who have not been voting because they don't have faith in the system. We're going to renew their faith. We're going to bring hope to the people. We're going to expound to people what they can believe in so that on that day of election, they're not going there to collect money. They're going there to make a powerful statement. They're going there to make sure that the right leadership is put in place, fresh leadership, without baggages, without contaminations, okay? People that would actually care, leaders that would care about the people. So what is our strategy to face these two giants? The people. The people becomes our strategy. The people becomes our foot soldiers. The people become those who actually will confront these giants. Okay, it's been bouncing between APC and PDP because there was no viable, credible alternative. Nobody is bold enough, courageous enough. Nobody has enough of God factor to think they can control them. We do. And with God on our side, the God factor on our side, these two giants are going to come down in Ekiti in 2022. And I pray that will be the start of crumbling of these two giants throughout Nigeria. Well, where we are today, we have a lot of young people. In Ekiti, we have one of the highest rate of unemployment among our graduates. And meanwhile, we're executing multi-million naira projects all the time. Here I am contemplating a knowledge-based Ekiti that is going to require a lot of activities, a lot of investments, people of different skills. So how do we move from the current manpower situation to the manpower that we require in that future that I contemplate? That is the question. And again, many of our young people are going to have to be retrained. And those ones that have been trained will have to inject functionality into their curriculum so that not only are they going to be in class, they're also going to have practical orientation. So many of our projects, we are going to have to do manpower audit, as I mentioned earlier on. If we contemplate a project of like Ekiti Knowledge Zone, for example, we need to do an audit. Audit means identifying what kind of manpower, what kind of labor, what kind of professionals are you going to require in that project, and by when. So if we realize that in 4 years' time, we're going to require this many plumbers, that many electricians, that many professionals, we now plan backwards. Okay, how long does it take to train people? Okay, so that we have high Ekiti content in executing those projects, so that every naira spent on that project, a high percentage of it will remain within Ekiti economy and plow back economic activities in the state. So now we have to then consciously identify, what do we have now? The relative ease of retraining. Okay, yes, you studied physics. Okay, how can I train you to become an engineer or a practical engineer? How can I train you in parallel fields? We have to make those plans. So it has to be manpower development plan, okay, that works alongside the long-term development agenda that we have. So we have to identify where we are going, what we have, how long will it take to get there in designing our planning, both on the manpower side as well as on the development agenda side. So this is my thoughts on what to do with our young people, because every year we graduate them. And unfortunately, many of our young people that went to school in Ekiti, they have serious problems with competing for jobs in urban cities. So this is why we have to have as much plans for them within Ekiti as possible. And the irony of it is, once we give them this training in Ekiti that has a functional and a practical orientation, it boosts their employability in other parts of Nigeria as well. So it works in so many different ways to develop Ekiti, as well as for them to be ambassadors of Ekiti going out elsewhere to work. What are the specific plans that I have for young people? Of course, you also have to realize that whatever I say now is what in the business world they call futuristic statements, which means these are statements of intentions. Okay, realities will determine the exact what we can do. But yes, in terms of the youth, again, I have the plans for training and retraining of our youth to convert them from people whose heads are filled to people who can be productive. And I've also said I have plans to consciously prepare them for the export market. Okay, there are opportunities out there. We will use recruitment agencies, okay, in those places to identify qualifications and requirements, okay, for them to be employable there. And those qualifications and requirements will now translate to a training programs for us, okay. Even our nurses, okay, there's scarcity of nurses everywhere, okay. There's no reason why, okay, I cannot start a nursing program, expand our nursing programs in Ekiti to consciously prepare our Ekiti people to pass any necessary exams that will allow them. So as a government, we will consciously facilitate this, okay, and give our people orientation to what is possible. Of course, we're not going to export everybody. We are still going to need many of them to support our own development, but we want to have them in abundance. We want to have a nursing program that is complete, okay, in preparing our young people. Okay, so whatever scholarships we have to give to our young people to be able to accomplish this, we're going to also make education affordable, good quality education for our young people. So in terms of youths, they are actually going to be my focus. And then another area, you see, often, and this is part of being strategic, often it's difficult to compete against these developed countries in certain areas, science, technology. I mean, we can compete, but many times we don't even have the materials locally that our young people can work with. So strategically, my idea is that we can position our young people in a manner that they don't have to queue behind their colleagues, their age mates in other parts of the world. Okay, they can actually use their own creative minds. For example, in the area of sports, okay, a young person in Ekiti does not have to go and learn from an American young person or queue behind a young person, because these are innate skills. These are God-given skills that we can develop. So a government that actually is conscious of this can make sports, okay, become an area of economic activity and get our young people to become celebrities around the world in a way that will make Ekiti become an economically viable environment. Another area is entertainment. Okay, entertainment. You know what is going on in Nollywood today. Okay, Nollywood is vibrant because these skills that are exhibited are natural skills. Okay, so we're going to explore the promotion of natural skills among our young people. Okay, and of course, I've talked about private sector development, and this is going to create a lot of jobs for our young people. Okay, so that people will have jobs. You know, I'm sorry to say this without meaning any offense. It's because there are no jobs. That's why civil service jobs becomes the jobs in Ekiti. Once you have a vibrant private sector, civil service job will not have this predominant attraction that it has in Ekiti. So we're going to create private sector jobs, or rather, we're going to facilitate them, okay, by bringing in investors to open up jobs for our local people. And then, of course, we'll need to have young people in our legislative arm, you know, House of Assembly, National Assembly. We're going to groom our young people to be able to either work in the public sector or work in the private sector or even in the political space as well, because we have these young people in abundance. So without being in power, these are really the intentions I have for our young people, to make them become productive members of society and also to develop them for their own future and for that branding of Ekiti image, so that we can again continue to spread across the world, but maintaining a unique Ekiti brand of people of honor, people of glory, people of integrity and principles. Well, the issue of poverty, you know, there's also politics of poverty. This is the sad part. And in politics of poverty, you come to see that many of our leaders actually do not want people to come out of poverty. Because when they are poor, they're easy to dominate, they're easy to control, they're easy to manipulate, okay? And that's why, that's how they sustain themselves, okay? But they realize that the moment you economically empower people, they gain their voices, they gain their confidence. They start asking questions of leaders, okay, and holding leaders to a higher level of accountability. So I have also come to realize that if I want to contribute to improving democracy in Nigeria, I must economically empower people. I must consciously lift them from poverty, okay, so that they can be in that position where you cannot easily bribe them. Okay, 10,000 per vote will no longer even be sufficient. Okay, so what you require to bribe people becomes unaffordable. So you don't even try. Okay, and instead you must be able to answer the questions of the people. So how do I plan to alleviate poverty? Through empowering people. Simply making them capable of generating income, make them capable of sustaining themselves, not in a way to depend on government or the culture of a free share of a national cake, the mentality that dominates now. Okay, so job creation is one way, okay, to create jobs, sustainable jobs, pensionable jobs, not voluntary, temporary, part-time jobs, real jobs. Okay, so for us in Ekiti, with DRA as governor, we're going to be creating jobs or facilitating the creation of private sector jobs for people in Ekiti. And then, of course, those who are in farming, who are farmers, okay, we also want to help them to increase their productivity. For example, access to market of their products are going to be very important to us. So access to rural roads, access to farms, and all of that is going to become very, very crucial, so that farmers can actually be able to derive a lot of income from their production and have access to market. So in terms of poverty alleviation, it's really going to be empowerment, and then of course any loan facility that we can extend to them. I recall when I was in trade, investments and innovations, I actually came up with a scheme whereby government can contribute or create a fund, okay, that is loanable to the people, and in a way that the people will not identify that the money came from government. Because there's also this self-sabotage, self-destructive attitude that our people have towards money that comes from government, that does not translate to personal development for them. So we're going to come up with creative ways to put loan into the system towards achieving expansion of capacity for our own people to generate income for themselves. So my goal really would be to help as many Ekiti people as possible to become self-reliant, even when they're not working for government. Okay, so poverty alleviation really is in the form of supporting people to achieve what is possible for them. In terms of those that cannot help themselves, okay, such as the aged and the disabled people, I'm an actuary. And one of the things we do for developed countries is actually creating schemes for these people. So you go to the US, for example, there's old age social insurance programs, okay, that are designed to these senior citizens, we call them, okay, such that they can get help from that scheme, okay, I don't want to be too technical, but it's by government actually creating funds that when you become vulnerable, okay, that fund can support you, or people of disabilities, they can also access funds from this program. So as an actuary, I'm quite skilled in developing such programs. Right now in Ekiti, for example, or maybe let me say during the first term of Governor Fayemi, because I'm not sure they have sustained that scheme. Okay, there's this Uarubo thing that was being done. Unfortunately, the sustainability principles were not in that program, so it became unsustainable at some point. And when you're supporting such a project from your current allocations, then of course, as that project expands, becomes more successful, the strain on your current allocations will increase and increase, and yet you have fixed obligations to pay salaries from those allocations. So those programs or that program became endangered, But as an actuary, I'm going to be addressing that. I'm going to be making sure that we build these programs to take care of our aged people, our vulnerable people, people of disabilities in a sustainable manner. Well, I was asked earlier about how to confront these giants, and I also said it's going to require the people. The people are going to be the ammunition to bring down these giants that have been oppressing us. Okay? So my appeal is for those who are eligible to vote that have never registered to vote. To those who are eligible to vote, register to vote, but usually don't vote, this is your chance. This is your chance to choose a leader that you know will not think of himself or herself, but rather a leader that is out to serve. This is your chance to make a statement. that enough is enough. We need good leader. We need somebody who is actually going to use international exposure and local knowledge to articulate solutions, who have capacity to finish what he starts, who has the passion to make a difference, and who has a clout to pull resources into Ekiti. So you need to vote. This is your chance to make a statement. I know many people are cynical. Many people wonder if things will ever change. Yes, things will change if you decide to change and vote in this election in Ekiti. And thankfully, there's a prospect that votes will be transmitted electronically right from the polling unit. So your vote this time is going to count. Okay? And on the day of election, I appeal to you, go out like somebody on a mission that cannot be bought. Go out so somebody who is purposeful, who is ready to wage war against a broken system. And you know what? Ekiti can become the start of wonderful things happening in Nigeria. Because if we succeed, and I pray God will help us to succeed, if we succeed in installing a good government in Ekiti in 2022, and the evidences in performance go to validate our mission, the rest of Nigeria is going to take notice, because most people don't expect anything phenomenal to happen from Ekiti. It's like, can any good thing come out of Ekiti? And if good things start to come from Ekiti, it's bound to grab the attention of people. And they're going to ask, Ekiti of all places, how did they do it? Can the same thing not happen to us? And as they ask those questions, you can begin to see the spread of good governance in Nigeria. So, appeal to you in Ekiti, okay, to become the heroes that will make things happen in Nigeria, okay? Because I will tell you personally, I don't believe that the development of Nigeria can start in Abuja, because Abuja is conflicted. Some are pulling south, some will be pulling north, east, and west. The best chance for Nigeria to evolve, to realize the potentials of Nigeria, is at the state-by-state level. That's where the revolution is going to start. And as that fire spreads across the nation, we're going to realize an opportunity to pull aside all those leaders in the past that have never profited us, and then begin to see a new playing field emerge in Nigeria. So take Ekiti as your starting point. We move on to Osun after that, and we begin to see what happens in the rest of Nigeria. So please, voting on June 18, 2022 as a mover of transfer, a mover or in the forefront of a movement to bring change to Ekiti would also give you the prospect of impacting change in the rest of Nigeria. Thank you so much for listening.